Republicans, with Democrats, with the White House over the August recess. I'm hopeful President Trump will actually lead on this issue next week, take a position, stick with it. The American people deserve no less.
Coons on CBS's Face the Nation. House Democrats are hosting a forum on gun violence prevention this week. Former South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford will challenge President Trump for the 2020 Republican nomination.
At the end of the day, a tweet is interesting, maybe newsworthy, but it's not leadership. And we're not going to solve some of the profound problems that we have as Americans by tweet.
Sanford on Fox News Sunday, he says he wants to make debt and government spending in Washington the focal point of his campaign. The Boston Red Sox have parted ways with President of Baseball Operations Dave Dombrowski less than a year after winning the World Series. The Sox lost Sunday night to the Yankees 10-5. America is listening to Fox News.
Hey, do you know what time the bank closes? I need to deposit my check.
You know you can do that from your phone.
I can?
With Bank of Guam's mobile app, it's easy. Just endorse the back and snap a pic to deposit it into your account. You can do this from anywhere, anytime, which means no rushing to catch the bank and no lines.
With Bank of Guam's mobile app and online banking, we're always open. Visit bankofguam.com for more information. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Member FDIC.
Connecticut water treatment customers don't keep coming back. They're satisfied the first time. That's right. Connecticut non-electric water treatment systems take care of your water problems, and you won't need to keep calling us for repairs. Join the list of satisfied Connecticut customers who purchased their non-electric water systems years ago and are still enjoying clean, conditioned water without any hassles from timers or circuit boards.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
A sad end to the search for a missing California mother.
33-year-old Heather Gamina Waters went missing from her El Dorado home in July. But detectives announced Saturday that they believe Heather's remains have been discovered, bringing an end to what has been weeks of heartache and uncertainty for her family and friends.
My daughter was one of the most giving, loyal people I've ever known.
Deputies with the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office arresting Heather's husband, Anthony Gamina, Friday and charging him with her murder. Detectives claim to have overwhelming evidence against Anthony.
Bridget Biorlo from Fox affiliate KTXL. Bahamian officials say at least 44 people died due to Hurricane Dorian, up 1 from the previous reports. The number of deaths is likely to keep climbing as devastated areas are searched. Thousands of people showed up to walk through Central Park in New York City to help raise money to fight breast cancer.
Breast cancer is hard, but this is a walk in the park, literally. Welcome to 2019 Komen Greater New York City Race for the Cure, where 10,000 New Yorkers gather in Central Park to run, walk, and support breast cancer survivors and those still in treatment.
CAM 2020! CAM 2020! CAM 2020!
Among the 10,000, a team of Fox News and Fox Business employees made up of some of the network's biggest stars. This year, Komen NYC is expected to raise $2 million from this race alone, with the Fox team contributing more than $40,000. From Central Park, Jerry Willis, Fox News.
A man dressed as the Sesame Street character Elmo is facing charges for inappropriately touching a fan who wanted a picture. New York police say the 54-year-old in the costume grabbed the 14-year-old girl's backside as they posed for a photo in Times Square. The Elmo impersonator denies the allegation. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
Live the balanced lifestyle. Take Care Insurance offers proven wellness and fitness programs to encourage individuals and families to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle through preventative care, being active, eating right, relaxing and unwinding, and being socially connected. They have the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs for all ages. Join the movement. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram or visit takecareasia.com to learn more.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to Tall Tales for Monday, September 9th, 2019. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who will be back in 28 days. So 4 weeks from now, he'll be back in this chair and resuming his rightful place as the host of Tall Tales. It's a rainy afternoon everywhere on Guam, so please be careful. Take your time. Let emergency vehicles through. I know that there are spots where you can't tell where the road is, and so it's that much the better that you don't scare the people around you by driving too fast or braking too late. I've seen a lot of it on my way in this afternoon, and it's just no reason for it. You're going to get there as long as you take your time and don't get delayed. So please take it easy this afternoon. I've got something for the Second Amendment portion of the show from Fox News. It was just posted shortly before I left the house. And Andrew O'Reilly writes for Fox News, Trump needs to give Senate guidance on gun legislation, Blunt says. And so this is a story, and let's go ahead and help you see it the way that Andrew O'Reilly sees it. Pressure mounts on congressional lawmakers following mass shootings in Odessa, Texas. Matt Bennett, former Director of Public Affairs for Americans for Gun Safety, and Fox News contributor Karl Rove, former Deputy Chief of Staff to President George W. Bush, joined the debate. Senator Roy Blunt, Republican of Missouri, said Sunday that he wants President Trump to let Senate leaders know what kind of gun control legislation he would be willing to sign. Amid several mass shootings in recent months, Blunt said that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, won't bring forth any legislation on gun control that Trump won't put his signature on. Quote, the president needs to step up here and set some guidelines for what he would do, Blunt said during an interview on NBC's Meet the Press. Quote, I'm afraid what's going to happen here is what always happens. If we take this silly, quote, if we don't get everything, we won't do anything. Gun control legislation has been a hotly debated topic for decades in Congress, but has recently taken on a new urgency in the wake of a number of mass shootings across the country. In August, back-to-back mass shootings in Texas and Ohio left at least 31 people dead just days after another gunman opened fire at a festival in California, killing 4 and injuring 13 others. Last weekend, another gunman in Texas killed 7 people and wounded more than 20 in a rampage between the cities of Odessa and Midland. Blunt said one area he thinks there is agreement on between Republicans and Democrats is finding a way to detect individuals with mental health issues and treat them earlier in the hopes of preventing more shootings. Quote, there's a moment here where we can expand what we're already doing on that front, he said. Authorities in Texas, however, said that despite failing a background check due to a mental health issue, the shooter in last weekend's slayings, Seth Aaron Ator, was able to obtain a gun by purchasing the weapon he used through a private transaction. Under federal law, private sales of firearms, such as between friends, relatives, or even strangers, are not required to undergo a federal background check. Some 21 states, plus Washington, D.C., have laws that require background checks on some private sales, but Texas isn't one of them. 2 other states, Maryland and Pennsylvania, require a background check for handguns, but not long guns. Blunt argued that any expansion of background checks was something that the president probably wouldn't sign and thus off the table for the time being. Trump said earlier this year that he supported universal background checks, but has since walked back on the comment. The Democrat-controlled House passed a universal background check bill in February, but the Republican-majority Senate has not called it to a vote. And Fox News also credits Associated Press as contributing to this story. Trump needs to give Senate guidance on gun legislation, Senator Blunt says. And that is from Fox News. And so now it's time for Zami Katni. I probably should have told you before I went to Zami Katni that our telephone number here is 888-8255. You're certainly welcome to call in, and you can sign on to Facebook Live, and I can read your comments on Facebook Live as well. Again, the number is 888-8255, and you can call us here at the studio, and we'll discuss what's on your mind. On the mind of the Guam Daily Post is programs must ensure student athletes don't lose opportunities. And in PDN today, it's Vapors Beware, a column that is reprinted from USA Today. Yesterday, they put one in, Pacific Sunday News, Prepared Not Scared, Be Ready for Natural Disasters and Emergencies. I'm going to actually talk about all three of these today because they're well, you'll see why. Guam Daily Post editorial, programs must ensure student athletes don't lose opportunities. It goes like this. Years ago, the Guam Department of Education and the Independent Interscholastic Athletic Association of Guam were two separate programs. This meant that public high school student athletes had to play each other more than twice in a season before the playoffs. Private schools had to do the same. There's nothing wrong with playing 3 or even 4 games against another school, but with only 4 public high schools at the time, the number of games was necessary if they were going to fill the season because the pool was shallow. In the mainland, schools have several layers of competition: city, county, state, regional, and national. On Guam, our geography limits students' opportunities to test and take their skills to the next level. A trip to nearby Saipan or Japan can cost parents and coaches several hundred to several $1,000s. Fortunately, the two athletic programs came together, and even with the 6 public high schools we now have, there's a difference between a school playing against 5 other schools versus playing against 12 other schools. The pool of talent is wider and deeper, and the athletes benefit from that increased breadth of competition. In the last several years, we've watched as young student athletes from our local high schools made a name for themselves at the college level. We believe high school sports and the vigorous competition between many schools played a role in sharpening those natural abilities. The loss of the experience of playing a wider variety of challengers is a concern that many stakeholders have shared, as the divide between GDOE's athletic programs and the 2AAG has grown so wide that the Guam Education Board decided it was too wide to cross. In severing that connection, we also may have made the pool of competition smaller, and our children may pay that price unless we ensure otherwise. Veteran coach Al Garrido is GDOE's acting program coordinator for interscholastic sports and, according to GDOE, has been working with principals, athletic directors, and student athletes to ensure a smooth transition. Many people know Garrido, who himself has children who are athletes in schools, is passionate about encouraging kids to reach their greatest potential. But he needs GDOE's support to ensure that our children's athletic opportunities grow and not diminish. We take heart in his comments in the GDOE news release. Quote, "I am excited to work with the IIAG and our schools to create a successful sports program that supports our students, coaches, and schools. He added, we also want to work with private schools or charter schools that may be interested in participating and contributing to an inclusive and competitive sports environment. Any schools that are interested in competing are more than welcome to participate. Whatever caused the divide, we hope that GDOE and the IIAG are able to ensure it doesn't hurt our children's chances to grow as athletes and individuals. That would be a loss for all teams. Yeah, it's interesting that a school system would have a program and then reduce the competitive pool that the program participates in. Now, maybe that we're prioritizing within GDOE to the extent that it's significant enough to cut the program and, knock out the participation because of cost. But that hasn't been brought up, has it? I understood that at the beginning that was the rationale, but what are the real dollars and cents dimensions of this? So the editorial today talks about the importance of competition and having the best competitive environment in which our student athletes can sharpen their skills, but it doesn't talk about the public policy of why the policy was changed. It doesn't delve into that at all, and I'm sure they've got it in their files somewhere. So kind of wish I had that backstory without having to go back and look it up myself. So let's turn to the PDN and see what they have to say. It's a guest editorial from USA Today editorial board. And the reason I want to consider this is because this is a public health issue. That public health issues are general to the public, having to do with something that's either for sale or a practice that by policy might be affected or controlled, influenced by a public policy, but that the health effects are individual and they sort of build up in a population over time, and that by policy we may be able to reduce the health impacts. So let's see what they have to say. The subtitle is Shallow Oversight Leads to Baffling Health Crisis. When e-cigarettes were introduced a decade ago, the battery-operated nicotine inhalers that don't burn tobacco were seen as a means of helping smokers quit. This premise remained unproven, even as vaping devices started to flood the American market. The effect of long-term use also remains unknown. Despite authority granted by Congress in 2009, the Obama administration didn't extend FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, oversight to e-cigarettes until 2016, and the Trump administration gave vaping device manufacturers until 2022 to comply. Meanwhile, popular Juul devices were enthusiastically embraced by young people, triggering a vaping epidemic that spawned a new generation of teenage nicotine addicts. E-cigarette use among high school students increased 78% from 2017 to 2018. As the regulatory vacuum persisted, a Wild West culture emerged, rife with black market or unlicensed pop-up shop sales of Chinese-made vape pens and marijuana ingredients such as cannabidiol, or CBD, and tetrahydrocannabinol. I should say this more often, right? Tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, the high-inducing chemicals in cannabis, all breeding the risk of toxic contaminants. And then, suddenly, lung illnesses emerged in late July. There have since been at least 215 possible cases of people using e-cigarettes and falling seriously ill, unable to breathe, and suffering vomiting and fever. The The Washington Post reported that the number of cases could be as high as 354 across 29 states. 2 people have died. One was hospitalized in Illinois after vaping, and another in Oregon who fell ill after using an e-cigarette containing marijuana oil from a legal dispensary. Investigators are struggling to find a pattern, although THC could be a common factor. On Thursday, New York State health officials said they were focusing on an oil derived from vitamin E acetate. A Trump administration averse to regulating industry. A Trump administration averse to regulating industry now faces the challenge of a new and mysterious respiratory ailment related to the use of a largely unregulated product. As it stands, a long overdue federal analysis of possible health risks from vaping would focus on legal use rather than the effects of vaping THC, still banned under U.S. law. Though cannabis is legal for recreational or medicinal use in 33 states. This baffling health crisis is the kind of chilling consequence that can flow from shallow government oversight. The Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention was slow to inform the public about the risks. It finally issued a warning last Friday, and the agency has yet to establish a database where state medical authorities can share and compare new data. The FDA is rightly working to understand the health risks of marijuana extracts and seeking comment from the public. But it needs more oversight power to crack down when contaminants find their way into the vaping craze. The good news is that a federal judge has ordered no more delays in the FDA reviewing the efficacy and safety of e-cigarettes. It's to begin next May. Finally, the nation will have a baseline of knowledge for understanding whether the devices do more harm than good and what regulatory controls might be necessary. In the meantime, vapors beware. I wanted to read this out because this is exactly the same situation that Guam finds itself in, as not only vaping has become a popular way of ingesting items, whether you're, whatever items they are, but also the threat of adulterated items being used in vaping that have ingredients which, when inhaled, are toxic. And if it wasn't visible before, it's visible now, but just in the last 2 months, month and a half, right? And so not knowing and not watching out for these effects means that people who are vaping are exposed to these kinds of health risks from new items on the market that have not been tested, have not been examined. Not that everything needs to be examined, but this needs to be examined because it's going straight to lungs and the health impacts are now starting to show. So that's today's PDN editorial from the USA Today. Yesterday, they put out a local opinion editorial, which is "Prepared, Not Scared, Be Ready for Natural Disasters, Emergencies." Guam has had more than its share of natural disasters over the years, notably a host of typhoons and tropical storms, but also earthquakes and landslides. And many of us have had to cope with losses caused by flooding and fires. September is National Preparedness Month with the theme "Prepared, Not Scared." Throughout the month, there will be public education and outreach activities to stress the importance of planning and preparing for disasters. Everyone should take steps to be adequately prepared for emergency situations and disasters. To begin with, every family needs an emergency plan. Even if you have one, check to see if it needs to be updated. And if you don't have one, this is the perfect opportunity to put one together. There's no guarantee your family will be together when there's an emergency or if disaster strikes. So it's important that everyone knows what to do. All must know how to contact each other, get to a safe place, and get back together. According to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, families need to have an emergency kit that has sufficient supplies for at least 3 days. Some of the basics of the kit are potable water for all family members, plenty of non-perishable food, a battery-powered radio to get the latest information, flashlights and extra batteries or other non-electrical light sources, a first aid kit and some basic hand tools, disinfectant wipes, garbage bags, and other sanitary items. Specific items depending on your family: medication, diapers, baby food, etc. And you should also have a list of potential concrete shelters near your home, workplace, and school. An emergency plan and kit for your family may help alleviate some of the stress and anxiety in the event of a disaster or emergency. It's always good to know that you and your family are as prepared as possible. And so, I'm going to consider the Sunday editorial from PDN, since it's Monday, so we have several to choose from. And I appreciate that they put the public health notice out on vaping, because it's starting to become visible here. There was a story last week about the health effects here on Guam from vaping, health impacts that have already started to show. And I do appreciate that Guam Daily Post has gone to bat for student athletes who are facing diminished competition as a result of government administrators making decisions. But they don't give the whole story. They don't arm us with the information that we need to act. And as you've heard me say, we don't have, it's not, if it's not actionable information, then it's not complete information. So I'm going to then, because I find this rises to the standard of actionable information, award a blue star to the Pacific Daily News for prepared, not scared. Actually, both, because the Vapors Beware editorial of today holds an important public health warning that goes down to individuals being warned publicly that this needs to be considered. Should be on your radar. Know what you're putting in your body. Even if it's legal, it may not be healthy. So thank you, PDN, for both of these editorials, the one that came out yesterday in the Pacific Sunday News and for today's Vapors Beware. And I'm looking forward to the Guam Daily Post being, learning from this experience and getting back in the saddle and riding hard, because we certainly need you to be completely plugged in. So thank you, PDN. It's 4:29 already. Real Joe, is it time for a break?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's take that break now, and we'll be back after this with more Tall Tales.
Try Mezcla's featured special for September. Southern Spice Crispy Fried Chicken. Louisiana-inspired fried half chicken served with red beans and rice. Available in Agotna and in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
We understand what matters to you because at Docomo Pacific, we're a family too. With the Now Family program, mom, dad, and kids stay connected on the latest devices the whole family can enjoy. For just $155 a month, get 3 lines with 30 gigs of 4G LTE data each, and endless use of your favorite apps without affecting your monthly data bucket. Add more, get more, save more. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is also brought to you by American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
And now filling in for Bob Klitzkie, it's Daryl Taggarty.
Well, thank you very much, Real Joe. I am Daryl Taggarty, and I am here taking a look at some comments here on Facebook Live. I see actually somebody who was able to be answering the question that was asked by somebody else. James Schmidt says, how come DOE split from the IIAAG? No real reason was ever given. Something about recruiting? I do know that, all I know is that it's not the same leadership as before. And I thought I read something some months back about not sure about the funding, whether you could keep up a schedule. But, you know, I really would like to have that clarified. And that's why I dinged the Guam Daily Post with their editorial today, because in the editorial they should have gone back and dug out the statements made by public officials on how we got into this situation, because it's not going to be reversed in real time this year. It might be put back in next year, right? Do I have this right? I think it's the beginning of the school year, and the school schedules have been set, and that's pretty much where we're going with it. Does that mean that the schools are pulling back their support of interscholastic sports? And that was a story back in March or April, I think. And that's a good thing to ask. Who made the decision and why? Perhaps we can get a phone call here, 888-8255 from somebody who's in the know. Tito Guay says, half a day. And I see Ken there, and Bing Cha became a follower. Thank you. I see Mark is here. Maybe Mark can call. 888-8255 if you're interested in getting this information out, because I really would like to know what's the story here. What's important? The newspapers now are getting into this possibility that the next legislative session will include the minimum wage hike. And you've heard me say that this seems like a watered-down minimum wage. It's a minimal wage hike, 50 cents over the next 2 years. It's minimal and not the same at all in scale as the increase in everyday goods for sale on Guam that followed the increase in the business privilege tax. That was inflationary. And the minimum wage bill has been held back because of the fear of inflationary impact on prices. But that's already happened. And so it's almost like the minimum wage increase has to happen because inflation has already happened. Price inflation. Today's story in the Guam Daily Post is governor supports minimum wage hike. And so the governor is prepared to sign a bill to lift the minimum wage to $9.25 an hour in 250-cent increments over the course of 2 years from the current $8.25 per hour. And, quote, let's give the 11,000 people on Guam who would benefit from a minimum wage increase a raise. While some members of the community have always and will always oppose minimum wage increases, the verdict is in, she said. Quote, a Guam-based study measuring the impacts of the last minimum wage increase found that our GDP went up, that the rate of inflation and the price of goods stayed generally flat, that work hours weren't lost, and that most people stayed on the job. And on the government side, AdLoop spokeswoman Janela Carrera said the increase would impact those who are making less than $925 on GovGuam payroll, estimated to cost $393,994 after both phases are executed, according to the fiscal note from BBMR. The bill doesn't address compression, which revolves around the wages of those who earn $925 an hour and above. This was a concern raised by the business sector, but also by GovGuam employees during the last minimum wage hike. Just last week, Senator Regine Lee sent out a press release saying the bill, which was introduced earlier this year, has been sent out of her committee and is ready to be discussed in the legislative session. And so it kind of continues on here. And then it talks further about, in her monthly address, the governor touched on the minimum wage, service charges for those in the service industry, worker compensation benefits, and extending the apprenticeship program. The governor wants service charges assessed at local restaurants go to, quote, the people who actually serve. Additionally, referring to Lee's effort to increase worker compensation benefits, she said, I will sign it. Any senator who stands for the rights of working people will find me standing with them. And so she knows how to speak. Place it on my desk and I will sign it. So apparently, Governor is signaling that the legislature is free to act on that. And also the text of the governor's monthly address has been reprinted in the Guam Daily Post, attached to that same article as well. And I'm going to actually get back into some of the items that I pulled last week and didn't get to. There was an article on PDN on page 2 back on September 5th. That was the Thursday paper, and it had dogs charging out from underneath a parked car. Stray dog controls debated. And this really, really interested me in how much was said and how little was said. Both. Mayors on Wednesday brainstormed ways to control Guam's stray dog population. Ideas included enforcing the pet licensing law to include placing microchips, killing or calling those that pose the most risks to villages, and continuing the catch-neuter-release system. This is really difficult to read the way it's written. That's okay. That's just, it's written to be read, not read out loud. Guam has had little success in enforcing its stray animal population. I'm sorry. Maybe I should just paraphrase this because it doesn't make sense when you read it out. Because of a lack of funds and lack of animal control officers, among other things. At the Mayor's Council of Guam meeting, mayors said that stray dog population could be anywhere between 25,000 and 60,000. Well, that's a pretty broad spread, but that's okay. Jesse Gogui, the Chalampago mayor, said he could be seen as the quote bad guy, but he said the catch-neuter-release system hasn't been successful because dogs weren't neutered or spayed before they're released. He said it's about time other options are considered. Dogs had to be released because there's not enough space at the Guam Animals in Need facility in Jigo, and there's lack of resources to spay or neuter every dog that had to be released, mayors said. So they're catching them and they're not neutering them when they've got them. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But I guess if you don't have money, you want to spend money on other things, you're not going to have money for your stray dogs. So That's why this article is so interesting. You know, it's either a priority or it's not. And if you look at the way that money is spent, either it's being spent on priorities or it's not. Gogri and other mayors brought up the idea of culling, killing, or putting to sleep stray dogs rather than releasing them back into villages. Mayors said it's been years, decades even, that leaders have talked about the need to control the stray dog population, but haven't come up with a plan good enough to address the problems, quote, now. Allison Hadley, executive director for GAIN, told mayors that GAIN doesn't advocate culling animals. Culling is the reduction of a wild animal population by selective slaughter. Quote, it doesn't work, she said. Quote, obviously it's a sensitive topic. I completely understand the mayors feel about culling, and I absolutely understand where that's coming from. But research shows that culling does not work. They've done it in so many countries. Jigo Mayor Rudy Matanani, who's been leading the mayors on animal control issues, urged his fellow mayors to support a bill that seeks to strengthen the existing pet licensing and identification law, which he said hasn't been enforced. So how does this make sense? Okay, I'm staying with my dad in Jigo. Jigo has a stray dog problem. The mayor of Jigo is leading the mayors on animal control issues, and he wants to strengthen an existing law which hasn't been enforced. If you were enforcing the laws that are on the books now, how would that impact the stray dog population? Why wait until another bill is passed that won't be enforced? And he's an enforcement officer. He's my mayor, but his proposal seeks to pair pet licensing and identification together with microchipping them. Quote, enactment of this proposal will move Guam towards being a more humane island, while at the same time educating and encouraging pet owners to be more responsible, such that our streets are made safer for our children and the community, Matanani said in his proposal. This is what he was telling me about at the Payless a couple weeks ago. He was about to come out with something. Mayors, GAIN, the Department of Agriculture, the Governor's Office, and other agencies will meet again soon to further weigh solutions to controlling the stray dog population. Well, they've been doing that for how many years? Decades even. Oh, let's have another meeting. Let's not actually put money into doing something to the animals that they actually catch, putting them to sleep, or spay-neuter, right? They haven't done that, and now you want to go out and improve the way that people handle their own pets? I mean, I know he's Republican, but he sounds like a Democrat. Just nuts. At the mayor's meeting, Department of Corrections Director Samantha Brennan presented a draft memorandum of understanding between the council and DOC on the use of eligible inmates to cut grasses and maintain roads. While the program has been in place for years, there's not been a formal MOU between the two agencies. DOC's work credit program allows inmates to clean up littered areas, parks and beaches, or other types of work details. Senator Jim Moylan earlier said, under the law, an inmate's sentence in return for his efforts under the program shall be reduced by 1 day for every 40 hours of work done. Well, why is the senator providing that kind of information when it really should be done by DOC? And, maybe I'm just amazed how much this article says and doesn't say anything on an issue that's been around for decades, and we have the money to give, $952 million, and how much of that is going to animal control? And does it have to be just one plan, or does it have to be a technical plan, or does it just have to be execution of the approved plans already? I'm amazed that this could still be going on. You know, and in the meantime, we get people who are so fed up with the problem that they take their guns out and go shoot dogs out on the streets. They're so tired of it. It's like vigilante justice. And then people get upset. Shouldn't do that. It's just not a learning moment for some reason. Just not. You know? They have this meeting because nobody's done this before. They haven't had a meeting on this before. All they need is a briefing on effectiveness and cost. The Mayor's Council can devote their money to the task or the current budget, or put their current budget on village projects and seek a new appropriation. But it's execution. How are we going to execute the existing policies and actually do something day in, day out? You know, they provide a census of the number of dogs on a street so they know where the problem is. Or they just go ahead and when they pick up dogs, do something with them when they get them. Oh, really? There was also an article, let's see. Kristen Clark says it would work. Oh, Kristen Clark says, what about what continuing catch and neuter release program? I guess there isn't a continuing catch and neuter release program because they don't neuter. They just catch release. It's like fishing, right? Go down to, where's that? What's that? Sasa Valley. And drop your line in the water and catch the fish and have fun, you know, tormenting the wild animals and throw them back in the water because you can't eat them because there's God knows what in the, you know, dumped in the, and there's residue in those wetlands. So, and it's same thing in the Agana Swamp. You don't want to be eating the food out of the wildlife out of there. But it could be sport fishing, right? So now we have GovGuam employees who are sport catching dogs, right? They just love doing this. You know, it's a way to earn a living. They turn them in over at Gain, which is in a government-built facility. So if it's too small for the job, then perhaps there should be some expansion of the facility. Make it 2-story. I don't know. Do something. You know, but Gain is contracted to operate it, the government's own facility, and now they're saying it's too small. I believe everyone, but we're not, it's not, is that what our $952 million is for? Is so that we can describe problems but don't solve them? Kristen Clark continues, it would work if it was implemented correctly. Well, at least that part of it would work. And they could say, we've taken care of this number. And then when we go out and do the census of the dogs running wild in the community, we've only put a 3% dent in it. Okay, at least we have a number. And 3% is significant. It's the bottom edge of significant. But, you know, it just seems that as important as it is, and as many people who are entrusted with addressing this and budgeted for it, there's so much hot air and not enough actual doing. And so I'm sure we'll talk about this again sometime. Even before I'm off in 28 days when Bob Klitzkie comes back, I'm sure this will come up again. Real Joe, it is 4:50. It's time to take a break. And this will be our last break before we get to the top of the hour. Again, our telephone number here is 888-8255.
Hulu is all your TV in one place, plus more. Watch thousands of hit shows, movies, and award-winning Hulu originals for only $5.99 per month. It's TV without the cable contract and the freedom of on-demand streaming. Get current network shows from ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, and binge watch every season of your favorite cable shows. Premium Hulu viewing is brought to you by Proline Automotive and AB Sports, Guam's store for Nike. To advertise on Hulu, call Choice Digital at 989-0042.
30 years
years ago, the very first Subway restaurant opened in Guam. Now, 15 restaurants later, Subway Restaurants is celebrating this milestone with a buy one, get one free offer every weekend, starting September 14th through October 12th. Come celebrate 30 years. Enjoy your favorite sandwich, salad, or wrap, all made with freshly sliced veggies and bread baked in every store. Take advantage of this buy one, get one deal. It's Subway Restaurants' way of saying thank you, Guam, for 30 wonderful years. Subway, make it what you want.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Well, I'm sure some of you are going to want to talk about Michael St. Nicholas and his continuing problems here. I saw that today. Is it today's paper? No, yesterday's paper on page 2, that John Paul Manuel has filed complaints, gone ahead and taken the delegates' challenge at face value and filed formal complaints. And he may file in the House Ethics Committee as well. But he's filed locally, Guam Election Commission. And I don't really want to get into the blow-by-blow. I know this is going to be a continuing story, but until all the details come in from those who are going to look at it, it's good that it's not just an allegation. I'm happy with that. I'm taking a look here back at Facebook Live, and Kristen Clark says, yes, a dedicated wing at Gain dedicated to trap, neuter, release would work fine. Because I do believe if you're going to have a neuter program, you've got to have something like a veterinary operating theater. It's got to be a dedicated space and a place to move, dogs in that are animals in that are nominated for inclusion in the program, and some place to place them while they recuperate. And so it has to be that flow. And a new wing, yeah, that's what I meant to imply that there should be either at that Gain facility or at some other place that could be rented and retrofitted within a budget. But somebody needs to actually work on the solutions. And then she says, absolutely agree with you this time, and smiley face. Well, if there's a time that you don't agree with me, please tell me, because those of you who are closer to the action than I am can really help us all understand that much better the warp and woof of the issue. And so that we can act, so we can comment, so we can discuss with each other and put some pressure on our leaders to move. And I also see it was on Saturday's paper that there's more war claims funds, and survivors, of course, have not been paid yet. And that's a story that appeared on Saturday in PDN on page 3. And this has some overlap with the delegates' ethics charges, and the governor being either there or not there on the issues, because there is St. Nicholas says, we maintain our position that Bill 181 is the ultimate distraction from H.R. 1365, despite local efforts to paint the contrary. And Speaker Tina Munya Barnes, one of the 3 authors of Bill 181, says she intends to pursue the local war claims payment bill should the Senate not pass H.R. 1365 by September 30th. Well, okay. And Leon Guerrero said Governor Leon Guerrero said there's well over $20 million in the war claims, $20 million in the war claims account after the U.S. Department of the Interior deposited an additional $18.3 million in Section 30 monies. This is money that would have come to the government of Guam to pay out tax refunds and, fix roads and spay neuter and whatever else we need to do, that's being held back for payment of war claims. And IAD. So then we have each year, Section 30 funding in excess of $68.603 million will be earmarked to pay war claims until all claims are paid. And that means that we've got $18 million more than the $68 million. That's a lot of increase in Section 30 money that is not going to the government of Guam, not offsetting the Trump tax relief and the ding that Guam revenues took. It's going to war claims and stuck. Well, and I saw something that's coming up. It was in Friday's paper in the Guam Daily Post. Startup Weekend aims to spark entrepreneurship across Micronesia. So from November 7th through 9th, Startup Weekend events will be held on Guam and Saipan, and for the first time in Palau, Chuuk, Kosrae, Yap, and Pohnpei. And this is being held by the Startup Weekends held around the world aimed at facilitating innovation and entrepreneurship. The event was first held on Guam in 2014, expanded to Saipan in 2016, and this is from a University of Guam Masters of Business Administration program, a 3-day event across Micronesia for aspiring entrepreneurs, students, and business leaders. This is great. This is great. This is what we need, is to have this kind of outreach and practical assistance for would-be entrepreneurs to take on the risks and know how to address the risks together with banks, lenders, venture capitalists, to take their ideas and go forward and try to build the economy, and as opposed to waiting until there's a government job or flying to the States for whatever jobs are there in that job market. We could use these ideas from people who are right here in our own community. And so I'm very, very happy to read about that. Jose Martinez on Facebook Live says, details? Whether official filing happened or not, the damage is already done and probably was the initial intention. I think he's talking about the about Delegate St. Nicholas. Is this all just a political hatchet job, as has been intimated, or is there more to it? Is it substantive? In which case, public processes need to roll. And music is playing, letting us know that it's almost 5 o'clock, almost time for those of you who are at work to get off and jump in your cars and drive through the rain-soaked streets of Guam. Do drive carefully. Let's make way for Fox News at 5 and our thrilling halftime show, and we'll be back afterwards with another hour of Tall Tales.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Back to work and getting down to business. I'm Richard Jordan, Fox News. Members of Congress are back in Washington today following the August recess. This week, the House Judiciary Committee is voting to formally define the rules of the impeachment inquiry into President Trump, a move that will reveal whether Democrats support an impeachment probe. Republican Congressman Doug Collins on Fox's Sunday Morning Futures.
This is really pathetic. Nothing like this has ever happened in the House before. They're trying to chart new ground when they don't want to do what they know they have to do. And as if they really want to do this, they have to bring impeachment to the floor. This is simply a show. It is a travesty. And frankly, they should be ashamed.
The vote is expected to happen as early as Wednesday. President Trump canceled a secret meeting with Taliban and Afghan leaders at Camp David. The president went on Twitter to break down why the talks were called off.
This is when he made the announcement to the public about canceling this meeting. Quote, if they cannot agree to a ceasefire during these very important peace talks and would kill 12 innocent people, then they probably don't have the power to negotiate a meaningful agreement anyway. How many more decades are they willing to fight?
Fox's David Spunt at the White House. The U.S. Coast Guard says it's too dangerous to resume the search for 4 crew members in an overturned cargo ship near Georgia.
Around 2 a.m., Coast Guard watchstanders were notified that the large cargo ship overturned and caught on fire. It was leaving the port of Brunswick, which is a major deep-water port in Georgia, about 65 miles south of Savannah.
Fox's Christina Coleman. The storm that threatened the East Coast last week hit far eastern Canada Sunday with hurricane-force winds. Dorian ripped roofs off apartment buildings and toppled a huge construction crane near Halifax. No deaths reported in Canada, but the storm is blamed for at least 50 fatalities along its path, 44 in the Bahamas, 5 in the southeastern U.S., and 1 in Puerto Rico. America is listening to Fox News.
We can't buy this house.
What?
It has 4 bathrooms. Just think of all the bathtub rings, water spots, and stains, plus the cleaning products I'll have to buy.
Didn't I tell you? The house comes with a non-electric Kinetico water treatment system. We'll have clean, soft water throughout the house, protect the water-using appliances, keep the tub, showers, and sinks looking like new, and help our skin, hair, and clothes look and feel great, too. The house even includes a Kinetico drinking water system.
A Kinetico system in the house? We'll take it.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Add another challenger to the 2020 Republican primary to take on President Trump.
Former South Carolina Congressman and Governor Mark Sanford confirmed it on Fox News Sunday.
I'm here to tell you now that I am going to get in.
He joins former Massachusetts Governor William Weld and ex-Ohio Congressman Joe Walsh as GOP primary challengers. Sanford says to those who believe he has little chance of winning,
I think you probably would have said that same thing to Donald Trump just a matter of months ago as he faced the likes of Jeb Bush and others.
A recent Fox News poll has the president's favorability among Republican voters between 85 and 90%. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Jury selection begins this week in the Chicago trial of 2 men charged with killing a 9-year-old boy to get back at his father. Prosecutors allege the men lured the boy into an alley by promising to get him a juice box. The 2 suspects will be tried together, but before separate juries considering the evidence as it pertains to one of the defendants. The 3rd man accused in the attack pleaded guilty in exchange for a 25-year prison sentence. A group of volunteers helping to clean up a national landmark just days before the nation marks 18 years since the 9/11 attacks.
About 100 volunteers spent their Saturday morning and afternoon restoring and beautifying Ellis Island. The group was on a mission, building picnic tables, painting railings and windows, filling sandbags, removing trash and debris, among other things. The mission continues a national nonprofit organization who empowers veterans to continue their service, teamed up with the National Park Service and Fox Sports Supports for a day of service to honor and remember 9/11 and those affected by the tragic events 18 years ago.
Fox 5 New York's Jessica Formazzo. Rafael Nadal wins his 19th Grand Slam title at the U.S. Open, Nadal defeating Daniil Medvedev. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Kelaguen Hapa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mescla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mescla, a true taste of Guam.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your NFL fix every Friday on Sports with Blake.
Get the latest updates as Blake and Mike break down the upcoming action. Get your game on with the boys on the hotline, 888-TALK, or sound off on Facebook Live at thepoint.gu. League members get a chance to win some awesome prizes that get you through the NFL season. The NFL Picks on the Ray Gibson Show is brought to you by Current Guam with special thanks to GTA. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And welcome back to Tall Tales for a Monday afternoon, a rainy Monday afternoon. And I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who will be back in 28 days. Yeah, we're really picking away at that, at this countdown, aren't we? To get us started on tonight, on this hour's show, I want to take a look at this. There are two items. Today, in the Daily Post, there is an article, Settlement Conference Ordered for Lawsuit Over Chamorro Land Trust Commission Practices. And in yesterday's Pacific Sunday News, there was a letter to PDN from Efren Servino, who's a resident of Lomita, California, and he asks, where's legal action for land trust compliance? And these two stories go together, and I'll tell you why. But let's go ahead and see what's this is the world we live in. Efren Serino says, great article on Land Trust Commission and agricultural leaseholders, but what is lacking is who and how are both the commission and leaseholders to residential and agricultural lands are supposed to be held accountable. Why aren't legal action taking place for compliance and evictions? We need public lands to benefit all taxpayers and residents of Guam, and not the few who expect entitlement without revenue contributions to the government. This same issue applies to all mismanaged public assets and lands with little accountability for loss of revenue, etc. We have a top-heavy government of Guam and legislature that is non-performing or delegate their responsibilities. It's absolutely true. I remember some time back, way back in 2018, there was a frequent caller to this program by the name of Jack, the other Jack, who's now administrative director of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And he would have the inside track and know just what needs to be done. And someday perhaps he'll be back on the air to assist us in this. But I thank Efren Servino for his letter. Today's story in the Guam Daily Post is settlement conference ordered for lawsuit over CLTC practices. The U.S. and Guam governments have been ordered to engage in another round of settlement discussions in the lawsuit filed by the Justice Department over allegations of discrimination practiced by the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. The lawsuit filed in September of 2017 claims the Chamorro Land Trust Commission practiced discrimination by limiting eligibility for land leases to, quote, native Chamorros in violation of the Federal Fair Housing Act. The government of Guam won a major victory in December 2018 when District Court of Hawaii Senior Judge Susan Oki Molaway ruled that the U.S. failed to demonstrate that the Chamorro Land Trust Act is based on improper race or national origin classification. During a telephone conference with U.S. Magistrate Judge Barry M. Curran on Thursday, the parties presented their positions, and after the discussion, the court lifted the discovery stay and issued a scheduling order, according to minutes filed in the District Court of Guam. The court encouraged the parties to continue to work together. Another settlement conference will be held on November 13th, and both parties must submit an updated confidential settlement statement, to the judge by October 31st. A bench trial has been scheduled for August 10, 2020. So this case still goes forward. Federal lawsuit against the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And so, taking these two together, where's the legal action for land trust compliance and this ongoing federal case against the government of Guam for discrimination? Here's my take on it. Perhaps, let me see. Perhaps Gov Guam will be saved by the inconsistent way that the Chamorro Land Trust Commission has been distributing land without reference to procedure or regulation, or even the law. Perhaps the Chamorro Land Trust Commission chairperson, Pika Farron, is supposed to vibrate in place and say only sweet nothings. Just think of it. How better way to avoid being proven to be discriminatory than to simply hand out land willy-nilly to your relatives and your friends, and don't bother going back and cleaning up any of it because it might be discriminatory. So what's the actual basis for handing it out? Oh, by whim. We hand it out by whim. And so we can't be faulted for discriminating because we hand it out without reference to our own procedures or the law. So, don't fault us on discrimination basis. And perhaps that's why the U.S. government couldn't prove the case already and get the judge to rule that Gov Guam is discriminating. Because Chamorro Land Trust isn't administering the law, administering the lands according to law. They're administering the lands according to whim. And so, yep, so say I. And so, what else do we have here? A couple of articles that have come up, both letters to the editor having to do with self-determination. So let's take a look at these. One is by Laura Torres Souder, and I think she goes by another name too. I just know her as Laura Souder. But however she bills herself would be fine with me. The other one by George Estacchio. And so, I don't want to go through the whole thing, but I will sort of give you the idea. If you didn't read this in the Guam Daily Post yesterday, The Quest for Self-Determination is an American Tradition by Laura M. Torres Souder for the Guam Daily Post. Quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain, with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Somehow we forget how American the quest for self-determination really is. This past week, 2 major events on our island took place which should have pleased the Founding Fathers. The 4th Marianas History Conference was held at the University of Guam on August 31st and September 1st. Then on Labor Day morning, the Whanogi March for Chamorro Self-Determination took place. Here we go again, some might say, with a hint of exasperation. The truth is, those of us who believe in the inalienable right of a people to determine their governance, i.e. the Chamorro people of Guam, have not let go of this quest. Clamor ebbs into quiet and then rises into uproar from time to time, but the quest remains so long as this self-evident truth is unresolved. The preamble to the American Declaration of Independence clearly outlines the path. Quote, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. End quote. What do those of us who pursue the quest for Chamorro self-determination desire? Simply this: to separate from our colonial status as indigenous people and to self-determine our separate and equal political station. For some, that means independence. For others, statehood. For many, it calls for free association. Whatever the end, a Chamorro-only vote is the means. Why is this so difficult to comprehend and support? Why is this so difficult to embrace by those whose rights to self-determination have been realized by their ancestors or people in their respective homelands? Nation building is an arduous and daunting process. It is often misunderstood and labeled as anti-American. The truth is, there is nothing more American than to dismantle the apparatus of colonization, at least in its originating preamble as a country. Many of the papers presented at the Marianas History Conference challenged prevailing historical interpretations of significant events in Guam's history and the experience of the Chamorro people through time. The opening keynote by Chamorro scholar Tina Delisle, titled, quote, History in a Time of Desecration, Counter-Commemoration as Anti-Colonial Practice, set the tone for exploring counter-narratives about Magellan, y tiempo en español, our relationship with the Philippines, militarization, the Japanese experience, indigeneity, language revitalization and practice in protecting indigenous intellectual property, displacement and persistence, literature and revolution. It was an intellectual banquet serving both comfort food for thought as well as some new recipes unfamiliar to our discourse. Many of the conference goers were among those who rolled out of bed the next morning and made their way to Adelup to join what looked to me like several thousand marchers of all ages, origins, and political persuasions, including our Magahaga, our speaker, and other members of the legislature. The children of Hurrao and familiar faces from Guam's business, economic, educational, and multi-ethnic landscape gathered to call on our Sina for guidance and to stand strong. What a way to set the mind straight, kindle cultural pride, and reaffirm relationships. What a way to collectively demonstrate, with voices raised and a gigantic flag leading the march to the district court building, that colonization has no place on this beautiful island, homeland of the Tautau'atano. The rallying cry, Whanogi Chamorro I Put-Itanota, could not have been more eloquent. I could have read it more eloquently. The rallying cry, Whanogi Chamorro I Put-Itanota, could not have been more eloquent. And that was by Laura M. Torres-Sauter to the Guam Daily Post, appeared yesterday in the Guam Daily Post. And, you know, Laura Sauter's father was in the early days of the Organic Act government of Guam, was basically the director of the Department of Administration, I think. I know he was head of planning later on, but I think he was very early on the head of administration, a very important figure in early government, not as an elected official, but as an appointed one. George Estachio, a resident of Frederick, Maryland, was the chief of staff to Delegate Antonio Wonpat. And he writes, and it appeared in the Saturday Pacific Daily News, September 7, Guam self-determination is still a work in progress. It is not yet clear if the decolonization movement is a separatist sentiment or simply an attempt to reconfigure the status quo with some trappings of free association, similar to the Republic of Palau. And there seems to be no apparent appetite to resurrect the 1984 Guam Commonwealth Act. However, the governor's August 7 request to Secretary Michael Pompeo renegotiation with FAS seems a bit of a stretch. Palau, the Marshall Islands, the FSM, were originally parts of the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. Guam, as an American territory, would be hard-pressed to participate as an equal partner in the negotiation, more so since the preeminence of the Navy in the Pacific is under challenge by the influence of China's growing sea power. It's also unrealistic to expect the United Nations or any of its subsidiaries to deliver unilaterally to Guam a new political status, no matter how sympathetic they may be for the powerless underdog. The United Nations is respectful of treaties and international obligations. I am not yet ready to surrender my American passport that the late B.J. Bordallo and Francisco B. Leon Guerrero spent their entire political lifetime to obtain for the Chamorros. And lest we forget, a war was fought in America in the mid-1860s to obviate separatist sentiments. Self-determination in the context of territorial political aspirations is a euphemism for limiting federal power. And if Congress's plenary power is to continue to apply, Guam will have no or only limited self-government. One frequently used argument for Commonwealth government was the, quote, mutual consent provision that theoretically limits Congress from enacting legislation affecting a Commonwealth without its consent. The late Arnold Leibowitz, a respected legal scholar on territorial issues, in a memorandum dated May 1, 1984, told the Guam Commission on Self-Determination that the accession of Puerto Rico to Commonwealth established that Puerto Rico was no longer a territory but had gained a new relationship with the United States. And he added, quote, "The moment of truth came when the negotiation picked up the Puerto Rican model and obtained a much clearer statement of Commonwealth in an executive branch negotiated document approved by Congress. As such, it gained local control, and there were some changes of law which could not be changed without the consent of the Northern Marianas." Okay, so he's talking about the Northern Marianas, using the Puerto Rico model. But it was later seen in the taking over of control of local immigration from the CNMI in April 2008, Congress isn't constrained by any status agreement. I was privileged to have worked for the late Delegate Antonio Wampat on political status issues. The Guam Tribune's April 20, 1984 editorial reads in part, quote, "There are two congressional assistants who will carry the burden of study and assessment for their respective chiefs. They are George Estacchio, Administrative Assistant to Congressman Wampat, and Timothy W. Glidden, Counsel in the House Committee on Interior and Insular Affairs, who works directly with Congressman Manuel Lujan, Jr., an influential Republican. Then there is Arnold Leibowitz, Washington Counsel of the Commission on Self-Determination. It makes little sense to travel repeatedly the same road and expect to arrive at a different destination. Guam's self-determination is work in progress. In the interim, Congress needs to make clear to the court what exactly it delegated to the Guam legislature. Does the authority to enact laws of local application include authority to impose restrictions and qualification standards for participants in the plebiscite? Is a plebiscite, which is nothing more than an official poll, to ascertain political status preferences, a fundamental right? So he asked two questions. I'll read that last paragraph again. Guam's self-determination is a work in progress. In the interim, Congress needs to make clear to the court what exactly it delegated to the Guam legislature. Does the authority to enact laws of local application include authority to impose restrictions and qualification standards for participants in a plebiscite? Is a plebiscite, which is nothing more than an official poll to ascertain political status preferences, a fundamental right? So he's saying that the Congress should tell the court what was intended by the legislation that created the government of Guam, and the government of Guam then enacted laws of local application. Local application being the qualifications for the plebiscite, which limited to the native inhabitants identified by the U.S. government as being the people here when the Organic Act went into effect, and also when the island was taken, when the U.S. assumed administrative control over the island by the Treaty of Paris with Spain in April 1899. And so that's a different approach. And this is something that actually will be coming up later this week in the conference that's going to be held. I think Thursday, Friday, I believe they're going to be televising it. And if you can't get in, it's something that you can follow on television. And then, let's see, on Facebook Live, Tita Guay is replying to Jose, who is talking about the damage done on Delegate San Nicolas, and then Tita Guay said promoted, and then Jose Martinez responded rewarded. You know, there are ways to go about trying to get someone's, go after someone's reputation, a public figure's reputation, so that in the next campaign and election, they're damaged goods. And that may be going on. That's what Delegate San Nicolas is charging, is that he is the target of basically a smear campaign. And that may be so. But if it has any basis in fact, that is something for investigators to determine. And so it may be in effect a smear campaign that has substance, in which case it speaks directly to Delegate San Nicolas's fitness for office, whether he is he shows that he's capable of adhering to law and applicable law, rules, regulations, right? So, did you notice in today's PDN on pages 16 and 17 that Bill Cundiff, in his guest column Veterans Corner, is announcing that commissary store privileges are being extended to other veterans. He doesn't have final information. He says that no later than October 1st, the Secretary of Defense will submit to the Committees on Armed Services of the Senate and House of Representatives a briefing on the plan of the Secretary of Defense to implement this new policy, which was part of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal 19. Section 621 of the Act allows extension of certain morale, welfare, and recreational privileges to certain veterans and their caregivers. This section can also be cited as the Purple Heart and Disabled Veterans Equal Access Act of 2018, amending Chapter 54 of Title 10 U.S. Code by adding subsection 1065 to go into effect January 1st, 2020, affecting 3 million more people to shop at military stores. Allows veterans who were awarded the Purple Heart, Medal of Honor, or those former prisoners of war, veterans with service-connected disabilities, and a caregiver to use commissary stores and MWR facilities on the same basis as members of the armed forces entitled to retired or retainer pay. And so coming up on October 1st, we'll see the draft ways to implement, regulations to implement. And so be keeping an eye out for that. That's pretty exciting news. I'd like seeing that. Absolutely. 5:30, time for our seventh inning stretch. Let's do our calisthenics for a few moments, and then we'll be right back with more Tall Tales.
Live the balanced lifestyle. Take Care Insurance offers proven wellness and fitness programs to encourage individuals and families to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle through preventative care, being active, eating right, relaxing and unwinding, and being socially connected. They have the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs for all ages. Join the movement. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram or visit takecareasia.com to learn more.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
One manager told me that he does everything he can to appear faultless and flawless in front of his team. He said, they need to see me that way so it gives them the right example. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about why that might not be the best idea.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Okay, all stretched out, ready to go. Let's. If you're in your car, just relax, take it easy, go with the flow. You'll get there, and everyone else will too. You're not going to have to stop and take a look at the damage in the rain, and hold everybody else up. So just take it easy. And I didn't think you'd mind a little bit of good news, which is the extending the benefits to other veterans. So let's take a look at another piece of good news, and that is in the PDN editorial on Saturday, September 7th, entitled "Let's Get to Work: Build Guam's Workforce with Apprenticeships." So apparently, there's going to be on November 12th and 13th. The 2019 Registered Apprenticeship Industry Forum at the Dusatani Guam Resort, which coincides with National Apprenticeship Week. Two-day event will give participants an in-depth look at the many benefits to apprenticeship. The theme is "Let's Get to Work, Hire Guam." And keynote speaker is Kayleen McCabe, a general contractor, TV host, and marketer, who will talk about the success of apprenticeship and careers in the trades. And it goes on and talks about how it's locally applied and how they're building apprenticeship programs. And last week's news, there's several stories about apprenticeships, and even in the governor's monthly address, she mentioned this in her address as well. But there's one thing I want to point out. It's both true and it's demeaning at the same time. The last line in the editorial was, "As the job market continues to get more competitive, let's do what we can to build pathways to meaningful employment." Now, do you see where there's a little catch on the nail there as you run your fingers across that fabric? Meaningful employment. Better paying employment, perhaps, but all employment is meaningful. All. There's some that can be considered demeaning if there are some people, like the editorial writers here, are going to distinguish between work that is meaningful and that which is not meaningful. Take, for example, there are jobs within the government of Guam that are not meaningful. because there is no public purpose. There is no public product. There is no defensible justification for spending money on the position, except that it exists in the job description and there's somebody in the job. But there is no actual work for that person to do that's of importance, relevance, that comes anywhere close to the amount of money we're spending on the job. But there's a person in the job, so that's not a public purpose. Unless the government of Guam is an employment agency or a public works administration. So, it's and I think that was declared unconstitutional back in the 1930s. Part of the New Deal, to just make government jobs so that you can work. Well, GovGuam has these jobs. I'm not saying that everyone is like this, but there's one way to increase productivity of the government of Guam, and that is for each of the directors to dig down deep in their agencies and find out who's doing meaningful work and who's not, and create a standard for calling jobs that are not meaningful or reassigning those people to other locations or nominating them for transfer to other agencies because they're on the payroll. Or if it doesn't fit anything, then there's a reduction in force that's called for, and start processing that paperwork. That's the job of the director. That's why they get paid the really high salaries, to make that type of research and exhaust all of the options and make the hard recommendations for bringing the agency into 2019 instead of 2018. Here it is September, and I haven't heard anything. I looked at the governor's monthly address, and I don't see her thanking any directors for having risen to the challenge of improving their agencies. It's really easy if somebody's giving you a bucket of money to conduct the census, and the job will get done, and people will work, and they will get paid, and that'll be money in the economy. But what's difficult and worthy of the amount of money we're spending on directors is when they get in those agents, down into their agencies, find out how to increase the productivity of the agency, how to carry out the mission, and if necessary, update the mission statement so that the agency can perform more efficiently and with more relevance to the amount of money that's being spent to fulfill the mission. And if necessary, recommend that it be shut down. Can do that. What jobs are out there? 538. These are some job openings that appeared in the paper last week. It's not all of them, but just think. A couple of them you've heard mentioned on the air. The president and chief executive of the Pacific Islands Development Bank. If you've got a college degree in economics, finance, business administration, accounting, or related fields, minimum of 5 years work experience in banking and the financial industry or related experience, strong lending and credit background and experience, good knowledge and familiarity on Pacific Islands Development Bank member nations and states, ability to undertake high-level dialogue with regional leaders on strategic and policy issues. There are some people out there like this, and so that's available. At Personal Finance Center, they're looking for temporary full-time loan officer for consumer loan interviewing. Telemarketing representative, temporary full-time, and collection agent, regular and temporary full-time. That's over at PFC, Personal Finance Center. And what else there? I had mentioned before the camp cook with 1 year experience, $11.20 an hour. They need 5 of them. 5 camp cooks to work at $11.20 an hour. And so if you work an 8-hour day, that's like $88 a day before taxes. It's better than, that's like, what's that, $450 a week, something like that? $1,100 or $900 every 2 weeks. Not bad. USDA Farm Service Agency is hiring a program technician for administrative tasks and field work. Applications due by September 20. Vertex Guam is looking for labor, operator, and carpenter. Opening for responsible, reliable employment must have Guam Real ID preferred. And UPCA on Guam and Saipan is looking for experienced debt collectors. And they are hiring for debt collectors. Let's see, what else is going on? CFIX is looking for a lighterage maintenance worker. Lighterage maintenance worker. You know, lighterage. It's like boats that transfer cargo from a ship to shore without the ship pulling into the dock. That's lighterage. And maintenance. Cleaning, inspecting, and replacing fuel filters and water separators. Obtaining fuel and lube oil samples. Testing engine emergency stop and overspeed devices. Test operating ramps. Lubricating fittings. Freshwater washdown. Oil changes. Battery inspection. CFIX is looking for a lighterage maintenance worker. Let's see what else. Larry Manalo is looking for 20 reinforcing metal workers and 18 carpenters. How about that? And there's a few that are duplicates here of what I've already read. And those are job openings that are going begging in the community. There's work to be had, but also if there's going to be apprenticeships, then workers' skills can be, or entry-level workers can have their skills brought up to a level where they can obtain jobs, because they will have passed an academic program which directly relates to the world of work. Perhaps the education, the schools that teach our children can take a look at that, the value of the apprenticeship program, and start to include some of those aspects in their curriculum. It may not fit a standard curriculum that's cookie cutter brought out here from the States and implemented through teachers that are dictated exactly what the content will be, but it may have more to do with preparation of students to real world of work and to open their eyes to the possibilities of what they may be able to do once they get out of school. But we don't know. 5:44, and Frenchie is back. He says, back from vacation, away from the cesspool of corruption, nepotism, and political patronage that makes its home in the corridors of Guam political system, with the help of their apologists and facilitators in the medias and other, quote, social networks. Can't wait for Bob to grace our shores once more. You know, he's not going to have a track to walk on. You know, up in Jigo, he's been a frequent patron of that track over by the Jigo fire station, but I guess he's going to have to find another place to stroll, get his exercise. And I'm looking forward to Bob getting back too, but in his own good time. Good to have you back, Frenchie. And yeah, you have to step away from some of this stuff sometime, especially if you are in a position of having to be close enough to it to get splashed. Gary Schoenhall says schools need less arts and humanities and more trade skills, math and science. That may be so. If for those who may be thinking that the schools are preparing students for a job market that is going to be vastly different than the markets of before, months ago, years or decades ago, industrial jobs, whatnot. You know, going to have like post-industrial work where students are going to not only be able to act as good citizens, to practice critical thinking, and that's where the humanities come in, but also have a path to living a satisfying life that may not have the kinds of opportunity to work or to be satisfied with work that pays this minimum wage. You know, what is the economy going to look like in the future? Students have to think and not expect that the future will be laid out for them. They need to be able to participate in their government. So they have to have critical thinking. They have to be able to weigh the value of their time and the value of the systems that are in the community. How is a community organized? And they have to be able to participate in that organization. They may need to have skills that are only of value as volunteers, and to live a satisfying life and not sit back, as so many people now do, expecting to be taken care of by the government, or expecting to be paid a high wage for having low skills. If they don't understand the connection, or they may find that they're just waiting for someone to tell them how to live a satisfying life. And that's where the humanities come in. And so the arts, well, there's some people who are going to be artists and who are already naturally artists, but they are told that they have to go out and do something like lay bricks, or, when they could just be painting those carabaos that are all over the island, once they get there. They're placed and then abandoned. And yes, those who have math and science aptitudes should be nurtured by all means, and our schools have to be ready for that. But it's not for everybody. Just like as math whizzes should not be expected to paint or play music or sculpt, or assist in bringing beauty and culture to future generations. So I thank you for your comment, Gary. Where he writes, schools need less arts and humanities and more trade skills, math and science. I think we need to be able to show the world of tomorrow as much as we can as options for all students, and then have places for them to explore arts, humanities, trades, math, science. And for those who find the spark to pursue those, be able to accommodate them and not have limited classroom sizes or only elites have access. With as many students as we are turning out annually, graduating from school, they should be equipped for the world of tomorrow and not the world of 10 or 15 years ago. Well, it's just about time for our last go-around here. Real Joe, let's take that break right now, please, and we'll come back with a final word from tonight for today's Tall Tales.
30 years ago, the very first Subway restaurant opened in Guam. Now, 15 restaurants later, Subway Restaurants is celebrating this milestone with a buy one, get one free offer every weekend, starting September 14th through October 12th. Come celebrate 30 years. Enjoy your favorite sandwich, salad, or wrap, all made with freshly sliced veggies and bread baked in every store. Take advantage of this buy one, get one deal. It's Subway Restaurants' way of saying thank you, Guam, for 30 wonderful years. Subway, make it what you want.
Whether you're going grocery shopping, taking the kids to the mall, or going to work, you need a reliable car that can take you where you need to go. A reliable car also needs reliable insurance. Let Nanbo Insurance make your auto insurance easy and uncomplicated. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And welcome back to Tall Tales. We've got about 10 minutes to go here, 8 minutes to go. So if you want to chime in here, of course, Facebook Live, you can tap out your thoughts or call on, get a last-minute call in at 888-8255. Got a couple of items here. Let's go back to the mayors. I had this since I don't know, a week or so ago. Mayors versus constituents. I mean, are the mayors, the mayors, we know the mayors serve community needs, but let me see if this something to think about with our mayors. The mayor's functions are a throwback to the local representatives of Spanish governors in the villages. They were the eyes and ears of the governor, able to spread the official word and organize public works crews. This is back in the Spanish time. Naval and Organic Act governments retained this link between the people and the governor. Yeah, under the naval government, under the naval administration, you still had commissioners, and then under the Organic Act from 1950 on, it was commissioners before they were mayors. And it's still an active concept. The difference is we elect them. They pick up dead dogs, come to see flooding problems, mediate between feuding neighbors, direct traffic at village churches during funerals, arrange for choral and traffic control for large home rosaries, all functions that are the extensions of the Department of Agriculture, Governor's Office, funeral homes, DPW, extensions of the powers that are already in executive agencies or private companies. At one time, we considered implementing a city manager type of government as a mental exercise. Consider distributing these functions of the mayors to other offices and disperse qualified staffers to the agencies. Just as a mental exercise, consider if they abolished the elected positions, distributed the functions, and then also distributed the employees. Community-based administration has its place, but here on Guam, it's a cultural and political artifact. Look at the mayor concept for Tamuning Tumon Harmon. Does she and did her predecessor operate her office as a real mayor as the concept is used in the States or in the Philippines? As a mayor. And it's a big enough metropolitan area to perhaps have a mayor. But she has the same functions as the mayor of Dededo or the mayor of Umatic. Perhaps we should just eliminate the expense and make GovGuam and the private sector more responsive. Make the agencies and funeral homes, churches, step up and do these services instead of us funding the mayors. They're not necessary. They're comforting. You can go to your mayor, but it's a kind of an old-fashioned way of looking at providing services. And it's inefficient. They can't figure out how to they can't figure out how to address the stray dog problem without referencing the agencies that they've received the power from. They're not doing it. The power is delegated to them by these agencies, and they can't figure it out. They won't spend the money to do it. They want to spend the money to do what? To get reelected, to be responsive to the people who put them into office. You know, it's an inefficiency. It's just inefficient. And did you see the story back on August 24th about the GVB versus Revan tax? The article is, report Japanese tourists spend less. That was the article. And it talks about how, by the statistics, tourists from Japan are spending less than they did some years back per basis. And the stays are getting shorter from people coming from different areas. Now, if GVB has the statistics, and they do, they have questionnaires for every visitor that comes to Guam, exit interviews, whatnot. They know, GVB has the statistics and knows how many people are coming here from where. They know exactly how many people coming from where. Then why does government of Guam not calculate the amount of money that's diverted to non-hotel accommodations, those Airbnbs, and collect the revenues? They should be able to calculate what is the revenue diversion, the market diversion of money to the Airbnb-style accommodations around the island, and find with that number, find a reason to aggressively and effectively collect those taxes. Because we've been talking about this for a good 6 months. And the people who have been put in charge got their raises first. Remember that? They got their raises first. The people who are in charge now under this administration making more by 25%, 30%, than their predecessors' last administration, previous administration. But we don't see any more, we don't see 25 to 30% more efficiency or effectiveness. Each time the governor comes out and explains what it is that she's happy to see happening and where she wants to take the island in her monthly address, she isn't patting one director or another on the back, saying, job well done. I'm glad I put you there because now we're actually able to move on some chronic problems within your agency. You have solved the problems, the solutions are at hand and are being implemented. Have you heard anything like that? I don't think so. But every day I open the newspaper, I look for that. I'm solving problems here. I'm solving problems there. So I guess we'll just wait and see what's in the news for tomorrow. Maybe it happened today, and we'll read about it in tomorrow's paper. We'll see. I'm Darrell Taggarty. I've been here for Bob Klitzkie this afternoon. He'll be back in 28 days. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock with another edition of Tall Tales. Ray Gibson will be here tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock from 6 until 10 with Ray Gibson Show. Please do tune in. Thank you for your attention this afternoon, and have a very pleasant evening. Everyone, please watch out for the slippery roads and for your friends and neighbors there on the highways and byways of Guam. Good evening, everyone.